Strudwick, and I'm co-curator of the exhibition Death on the Nile at the Fitzwilliam Museum. And I'm talking to you today about the Book of the Dead of a man called Ramose, which is on display in the exhibition. The papyrus came to us in 1922 as a gift from the friends of the Fitzwilliam Museum. Books of the Dead were very important documents to take with you into the afterlife because they helped you to get through dangers that were presented by strange gods and things like that. And having a Book of the Dead with you allowed you to get through those dangers because there were magical spells in there which told you what to say, or by magic actually operated on your behalf and got you through into the best bit of the afterlife, which was the fields of Yaru. Ramose was a scribe himself. That means he wrote documents, and that might be the reason why he has such a particularly fine example of a Book of the Dead. It's very well written, the hieroglyphs are very clear, and one of the most beautiful things are the decorative vignettes which appear at the beginnings of each spell and illustrate something to do with what the spell is actually about. And that's one of the real beauties of this particular Book of the Dead and what makes it such a beautiful example of its kind. The vignettes were created by an artist who was extremely skillful with using Egyptian pigments, and they are done with a really sparing amount of paint, which shows just how skillful he was.
I'm Julie Dawson, I'm the Head of Conservation in Fitzwilliam. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Ramose papyrus, which was a very challenging piece of conservation for us, which we worked on from April 2005 to April 2007. The document had been in the Fitzwilliam since 1922, but it was in a very, very poor condition and very little of it had been on display. When it was found by Flinders Petrie at Sedment, it was in the mouth of the tomb, and although he comments on the high quality of the painting, he also noted that it was in thousands and thousands of small pieces. So it was brought back to Cambridge in those thousands of small pieces in some not very suitable packing materials. And some work was done on it then in the 1920s. So the papyrus had been put together, but it hadn't been put together very well. A lot of the pieces were in the wrong places, and these little corners are quite damaging. It had also become quite creased and crushed. So we had a major jigsaw puzzle. But what was really wonderful about it was that the pigments were in incredibly good condition. There are a lot of very light-sensitive pigments on here. These are principally the arsenic sulfides, orpiment and realgar. They're very poisonous, so I have them in jars here. Orpiment, which is a nice bright sparkly yellow, and realgar, which is a rather orange colour. But they do both deteriorate in light. And we've seen this on the pieces of our papyrus that had been displayed through a lot of the mid-20th century. But the pieces that were actually in dark storage all that time were in fantastic condition. So one of the challenges is both to conserve the piece and make it presentable for the public to see it properly, but also to ensure, of course, that we keep it in a good state of preservation. These artists were particularly good at rendering sort of features of the natural world, so plants and particularly the animals and the birds. And this is just an incredibly nice example here of the Horus hawk with immense detail in the painting. Every individual feather, Egyptian blue, which is this extraordinary pigment that the Egyptians were making, which is a copper-based sort of glass-like material. And it's possible to get a range of different colours and shades within that, and we can see in the detail on the hawk how that has been used incredibly cleverly to make the texture of the feathers in particular. What's also very nice about this figure is that he's actually sitting, he's using the frame of the vignette as a perch. He's actually sitting on it, so it sort of slightly extends out into the rest of the document.
The papyrus was over 20 metres long, and we have one part of it on display in the exhibition. And the bit that we're showing is the part where the fields of Yaru are illustrated. And it shows that for the deceased in the afterlife, they were expected to do manual work, and that work was particularly agricultural work. So in the centre of this bit of the papyrus, you can see Ramose and his wife carrying out agricultural work. They're ploughing and using a hoe and reaping the crop to harvest it. So it shows that that's part of what was involved in the afterlife. We've also got on display in the exhibition the answer to actually having to do that work oneself, which was to have small magical figures to carry out the work for one. The exhibition and the papyrus itself is on display until the 22nd of May, so there's plenty of opportunity to see it, even if you don't just see it in April when it's the object of the month.